So I'll introduce this session in a mix of both English and Bengali. কারণ ফুটবলটা এমন একটা জিনিস যেটা ঠিক বাংলা ভাষায় না বললে ফিলটা আসে না। ইস্ট বেঙ্গলের গ্যালারিতে আপনি ঠিক ইংরেজিতে বোধহয় চিয়ার করেন না। ইস্ট বেঙ্গল বা মোহনবাগানের গ্যালারিতে বসে যখন আমরা প্রিয় দলের জন্য গলা ফাটাই তখন বোধহয় আমরা ঠিক ইংলিশে চিয়ার করি না। বাট this will be a hybrid session, a mixed session in English and Bangla, because the passion for football not only runs in the veins of Bengalis, but I think it runs in the veins of all Indians. And tonight actually, we discuss the road ahead for Indian football. Not only the derby on the 3rd of May, not only Mohunbagan, East Bengal, not only Miguel Figueira, not only Robson Robinho, but the future, the road ahead for the Indian football. Where do we stand when it comes to FIFA rankings? Where do we stand when it comes to high pressure situations? Where are we succeeding? Where do we need to better ourselves? Taking a look at us in a constructive way, constructive criticism of the Indian football. What can we do to make things better? What can we do to translate this passion into fantastic performances on field? And we have some of the frontline people in this regard, in this field. For all of you to engage in this session, may I call on stage one by one Mr. M. Satyanarayanan, Deputy Secretary General AIFF, Anirban Dotto, Secretary IFA, Mukul Chaudhary, CEO Jamshedpur, and Prithijit Dash, CEO Interkashi. May we have you on stage, please, and a huge round of applause for my esteemed speakers and panelists. And to moderate this session, may I call on stage, perfectly fitted in a blazer, and with his charm and with his aura of Maidan, Mr. Debashish Sen. Can you join us on stage, please? The Maidan legend, Debashish Sen, who never misses a beat when it comes to football, and the principal football correspondent of Ref Sports. May I call on stage Mr. Rahul Giri to moderate this session along with Debashish Sen. So whenever it comes to football, we have to discuss football, we have to talk about football. In our shows, the two people I reach out to on WhatsApp, one is Rahul. I ask him football niye kichu update ache ki rakhbo, and Debashish da, I always say Moidan ki bolche Debashish da. Whenever this man is on tour, his heart still beats for Moidan, and he promises to come back and deliver the punches from the Moidan. Ladies and gentlemen, the road ahead for Indian football. Over to you, Rahul and Debashish da.
So hi everyone, first of all, good evening to everyone present in this hall. As you all know, it has been a difficult year for Indian football. I mean, last few months, every time Indian football, has been in headline for wrong reason. I mean, from the delayed start of our top tier Indian Football League due to commercial deadlock, then to the disappointing run of our national team. Every time it has been lots of negatives, but in this session, we are not going to dwell on the past. We are not going to talk about what went wrong, but we will look forward. What are the positive going forward for Indian football? How you can revive the football ecosystem? How you can rebuild Indian football? And to discuss on that, we have a very distinguished panel, starting from my right, M. Satyanarayan, AIFF Deputy Secretary General, then obviously IFA Secretary Anirban Dotto, then Jamshedpur Club CEO Mukul Chaudhary, CEO of Interkashi Prithijit Dash, and obviously my colleague Debashish Sen. Firstly, I will start with Satyanarayan sir. Sir, as I have already mentioned, that last few months have been very difficult, as a Indian football fan, and going forward, I think next few years, at least 2 to 3 years, will be very crucial for Indian football. So what are the steps AIFF is planning to take? Because already you have released the commercial tender, and I think that will be really crucial to define the next few years for Indian football. So what are the steps AIFF have been planning to take in the next few years?
First of all, thank you for having me here. Like you said, next 2-3 years is truly going to be a sort of a correction period. A few things have happened, and all happened in the last 1 year. The first thing being that we finally got a constitution after almost about 7 or 8 years. So that's number one. Number two, not only for football, but for all sport in the country, the new Sports Governance Act has come. And this act is putting a lot of focus on the governance. And that is one thing which has been the Achilles heel for most of the sport. Because instead of being athlete-centric, it's always been administrator-centric. And that change perhaps will happen once this Sports Governance Act gets implemented. Two things will happen. You will not have those court cases now. There are almost about 300 cases in the Supreme Court and the High Court and various courts. That will stop. So administrators will have more time to actually govern the sport rather than running to the court. That's number one. Number two, just like what Adil said and Rahul said, this Governance Act is going up to the district level. So it's going to ensure that not only at the AFF level, the National Sports Federation, the states and the districts will have to get their Governance Act together. So perhaps that is something which will happen in about 2 years' time. You know, the administration at all levels will sort of pull up its socks. The third, Indian football has got into a very new phase right now where the All India Football Federation and the clubs have come together to organize the top leagues in the country. And this is going the way of the international big leagues like a Premiership and the German League and the Spanish League. And it's happened this year. Of course, it got delayed. No fault of AFF. Always, you know, we are being trolled, we are maligned, but we don't mind it. Football is a game where we fall, we get up, and we'll be there. We have about 65 people in Football House. We've got 36 state federations, all of them mostly headed by competent people. We organize thousands of games all over the country, and touching on what Rahul said, we've got a good, the good thing for us is almost in all the 700 plus districts football is played. But the flip side is perhaps a few in the district levels, the administrators may be letting us down, and to the lack of infrastructure. I just heard the gentleman from Britain who was speaking of games being played at 1 o'clock. The administration has no hold over it because if you've got a grass pitch, in a week you can just play 4 games. This compared to an artificial pitch where we've got in various places, you can use it for 20 hours. So infrastructure is a problem, and this is something which going forward, hopefully with the help of the government, and here I actually would have to say thanks to, you know, big companies like Tata Steel who've been with football for such a long time, and even now in this league, the ISL, they've always stood with us. The second thing I want to touch is on women in football. And I'm very proud to state here that for the first time after 20 years, our senior women, our under 20 women, and our under 17 women have qualified for the Asia Cup finals, which means we are just 2 or 3 wins away from actually qualifying for the World Cup. So we are that close. Like Rahul said in rugby, they're 8, they need to get to the top 2. We are in 13 in women in Asia, and we need to get into the top 6, which is just 2 wins away. Hopefully that should happen. And the amount of focus we give for women's football is tremendous. Even now we've just put out our academy accreditation, where we have about 150 academies all over the country who are accredited to the All India Football Federation. We give extra points if they've got women administrators. We give them extra point if they've got women coaches. We give them extra point if they have a women's team. So women's football, and I'm very confident, and hopefully it could happen in the next 2 months because the other 2 teams are still there with the chance of qualifying for the World Cup. The under 20, both have got very tough groups, but still they've been working very hard. So hopefully we'll have some good news. And again, like from 200 people, when 60,000 people came to the ground, hopefully it will also happen in India. And believe me, football is the sport to follow and to invest because it's huge at the grassroots level. It's huge, you know, the number of people playing football. Almost every turf in every city is booked till night 1 o'clock. You have people paying and playing. Unfortunately, it's not yet happening. at the place where it has to happen. Like I said, a correction period will take place, and hopefully you'll see lots of good things happening in a couple of years. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. I think it's a massive year for women's football. I mean, of course, the senior women's team, they finished bottom of the table, but still we are all proud of their fight, the character they have shown on the pitch. But still we have hopes on the rest of the two teams, under 17 and under 20. Obviously, for next question, over to you, Devashish.
Yeah, I have a question to Satyanarayan, sir. Sir, you spoke highly about the women's team. Yes, we still are in awe about that goal that Manisha Kalyan scored a few days back. But when you talk about the senior men's team, means is it sort of a disappointment for you? How to address the failure of the men's senior team? Means obviously not qualifying for the AFC Asian Cup. We have qualified in 2019 and 2023, but that was not the case. So how do you address the problem? Because a country's success relates to how the national team performs in world stage, and that has not been the case with the Indian football team.
I think one of the reasons is that our club football versus the Indian national team, when players, the clubs are one of the major contributors of football. They keep the players with them for almost 10 months. We only get them during the FIFA windows. So the strength of the club football and the strength of the Indian ranking are interrelated. Hopefully it should improve because our under 23 team is really, really doing very well. And maybe in the coming days we should get some good results. But don't forget that the other countries in Asia are really in a very good position as far as infrastructure is concerned. Their coaching, the money they're putting in, all the Gulf countries. And in Asia, you got the Japans, the Koreas, Australia, Uzbekistan, and the Gulf countries. So getting into the top 8 or the top 6 to try to get into the World Cup will always be a challenge. And as far as ranking is concerned, yes, everyone talks, you have gone down in ranking, but what happens is ranking is counted on the number of friendlies you play and win. And when you play friendlies, you just have those 10 days windows 3 or 4 times a year. It depends on whom you get to play, because the big clubs always want to play the bigger clubs, the bigger countries, because they get points. So it's a little complicated. It doesn't mean that if you are 140, you are actually 140 ranked. You could be 60. And just to give you an example, our under 23, under 17 team, we beat Iran. Iran is in the top 10. But still we are 140. And if you look at the World Cup, a 20th ranked team might never win the World Cup. Okay, because that's how it is. And again, I don't want to compare it to cricket. I think most of you all know that in football, the number of countries who are affiliated to FIFA are more than the number of countries who are affiliated with the United Nations. So more than 200 countries play football, and trying to get to the top is difficult, but we will get there one day. Thank you.
Interesting point made by Satyanarayan sir. But we should also talk about our Indian football league, domestic football, because obviously league structure is the backbone of your national team, and of course big positive has been Mohun Bagan, their convincing run in the league football. But obviously we have got another success story, that is obviously Inter Kashi, a club from a state of Uttar Pradesh, a state which produced very few talents who went on to represent the national team. But Inter Kashi, they are dreaming of creating something big in the future. So obviously we have Prithijit Das, CEO of Inter Kashi. So what's the roadmap of this club to promote football in a state like Uttar Pradesh? We have seen, I think, 2 or 3 footballers who went on to represent the national team. So what's your roadmap with Uttar Pradesh football?
First of all, thank you to Rev Sports for inviting us and having us here in this panel. And also thank you to All India Football Federation, because it's only through them that we've been able to build a club. It's crazy when you think of Uttar Pradesh, 3% of the world's population, and we are the first professional football club out of there. I feel the opportunity is huge. There is so much one can do. In terms of population, is probably the size of Brazil. That is what attracted us. We were very fortunate that in 2 years of the club, we could win the I-League. Now we are playing in the ISL. And like everyone says that nothing's better than success. So we feel now that we're in the top tier, we can convince more corporates, more people to start investing in football in Uttar Pradesh, because the only way the ecosystem can grow is, I don't know, if you have 100, 200, 500 clubs in the state, that will essentially build the ecosystem, which will essentially bring out the players, and then we would have played a small part in this whole revolution of football in Uttar Pradesh.
Devesh, sir?
Yeah, if I may ask Mukulda, means obviously you happen to be involved with an I-League club as well before joining Jamshedpur SC as the CEO. Having seen Mumbai SC, with whom you were associated with as a CEO, and now to be involved in an ISL club, what do you find the difference means between an ISL club and I-League club? Do you see a drastic difference in approach and the quality, the infrastructure, and what is that one thing that needs to be improved when you talk about Indian football?
Thanks for that question. The biggest drastic difference is the expenditure. So when you're an I-League club, you spend almost 1/6 the amount, and not that the quality is 1/6. What ISL did, typically is what the most important was infrastructure. What one has seen in last 10 years happen in Indian football, what Andrew was just mentioning about infrastructure, I-League games used to be played at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the same reasons. And this was Premier League of India once upon a time. And a similar thing in Bombay, we had 22 players on the ground and we had less than 5 on the stadium. So worse than what you had seen in terms of 250. So from that to what ISL has managed to do today, wherein getting audiences to the stadium, I think that's a fantastic run. And thanks to All India Football Federation and all the clubs involved, the quality and overall display has been fantastic. But having said that, yes, we will always judge by the ranking of the Indian national team, and I think there is some work a lot of work needs to be done in that direction, and it should be done. But the major difference that I see is the overall, also the glamour quotient. I think when we were in I-League, of course, there were prominent names, and it was as sought after, but I think it's gone to a different level when it comes to glamour quotient as far as ISL is concerned.
Absolutely, a lot of differences between I-League and ISL. The big thing that is the professionalism. I've seen a lot of professionalism in ISL. You know, footballers with a strict diet, and also there have been a lot of modern day infrastructure as well. But one difference that we have seen over the past few years in the national team, obviously, decline in the number of Bengali footballers that we have noticed. You know, and for that brings me to my next question to obviously IFA Secretary Anirban Dotto. You know, at least if we go 5 or 6 years ago, there used to be 3 or 4 Bengali footballers in the Indian national team. But now if you see, sometimes there is Shubhashish Bose, or sometimes we don't even see his name as well in the squad. So the decline that we have seen in number of Bengal footballers in the national team, what's actually going wrong, do you think?
Well, to be very frank, the first step for change is accepting reality. We have all known Bengal or Kolkata as the cradle of Indian football. We have all known Calcutta as the Mecca of Indian football. And we were living in a state of complacency. So what happens when you reach a state of complacency, you don't really work, because you are happy with the existing whatever is happening. And I feel pre-COVID, we were in a state where we believed that we are the number one and we don't need to work for it. We are the biggest name in Indian football. So as I told you, that the first thing is to accept, and then only you can set forward change, you know. And what has happened has, we have completely neglected in the past few years, or past quite a few years, the youth. We have not worked towards youth development. If you look at Bengal now, our major investment is in youth football. We have the nursery league up and going now. We have converted or transformed the Calcutta Football League completely into age group leagues. We have brought in state youth league. So there is now a lot of young players. We have a lot of opportunity for the young players to play and exhibit their talent and improve themselves. What an association can do is give opportunity to the players to play. We have focused a lot. We are trying to develop as many coaches as possible because football is a science. We have to understand that. Coaching is not about running around the player, making players running around the field. So you have to understand what they need and apply the science accordingly so that they can develop to become better players. And we have been focusing on coaches development. We have been focusing on youth development, and I think there are around 2,500 youth matches happening in Bengal right now, which is not a small number. And I am certain that in the coming times, you will see that there are a lot of players playing for the India or playing for the ISL teams. Even if we talk about ISL, you have mentioned a name, I'll say, who is the most favorite team in ISL right now for championship? It is Mohun Bagan, right? And it is captained by Shubhashish Bose. Exactly. So that's a Bengali. We have quite a few Bengali players playing in the ISL teams, and I'll not be able to answer this why they are not in the national team, because it depends on the coach. It depends on the choice of the coach, and every coach has his own mindset and his own vision about the team, and they select players accordingly. If you look at Bengal players, you will find players more dependent on skills rather than physical agility and physical abilities. Whereas football has moved a pace ahead, and now it is more of a physical game. So your height, your fitness, your strength matters. And yes, Bengal used to dominate Indian football, but you have to keep in mind that when Bengal used to dominate Indian football, there was no football in the rest of the country. That is when we dominated Indian football. Now there has been development of the sport in all the states. Most of the states, they are coming up. Like Northeast, they have evolved as a powerhouse of Indian football. They are producing so many players. So you cannot ignore them. You cannot deny their presence in the game. So obviously players will come from other regions of the country as well, because they are also focusing on the development of the game. But I'm sure Bengal will keep dominating.
Were small in size. That is the story which has hit the headlines not only in India but the world. But everyone forgot that within 7 hours, we replaced them with top-class Macron kits. And the girls, when they played, they had the best kits on. It is not in our hands that the manufacturer has made a mistake in the sizes. I mean, for someone who's prepared a team for 2 years, sent them on multiple trips, got them a World Cup coach, it is not for us to intentionally ensure that they get smaller kits. We don't gain anything. Of course, we stopped the payment, we ordered an inquiry. But the narrative was that AIFF is the culprit. It's not. I mean, someone has made a mistake. We all buy clothes. So many times we send it back for alteration. It happened. And I'm thankful to Rev Sport because at least they got me on a show and they asked me and we could answer it. A lot of people write and there's utter nonsense, you know. People have written that the girls themselves went and did shopping. We got the news at 9:30. 10 o'clock, my manager, my security officer and one more person, all three were out in the market. And in 7 hours, they not only sourced the kits, they got it printed, and the next day it was passed, and they played with the new kits. But this is not there, which is out in the media, and we can't go around, you know, we've got other work to do in the federation, and we are working hard. And believe me, results will come. For the first time, we have 4 teams which have qualified for the Asian Cup. We've got a new scouting department. The number of academies is about 150. The number of competitions have increased, and the incompetent AIFF has stepped in and is organizing the biggest event in India, which is the Indian Super League. And everyone, you know, all the naysayers said football is gone for this year. But we started not only the ISL, we also started the I-League. So believe me, just trust in us, be a little patient. In a few years' time, this game is going to turn around. Even today, when 2 clubs play, you get a crowd of 60,000. It doesn't happen in any other game. And that is the strength of Indian football, and that is what keeps us going. All the people involved in football, including people like me, I've been a journalist for 30 years. straight into administration because I love football. Each one of them who are in football are there only because of the passion. No one is making money. None of the corporates, even like Jamshedpur, are putting money to make money. Everyone is at a loss. But it is only the passion which drives this game in our country. And one fine day we will also get there where all those who have invested will get their dividends. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think despite this all off-field controversy, the girls have shown us that there's not much difference between India and teams like Vietnam and Chinese Taipei. If things go well in the coming 3 to 4 years, I think they can bridge the gap as well. But very interesting point made by Anirban Da, that is corporate investment. Without corporate investment, it's really challenging, to sustain in football, whether it's club or academy. And that brings me to my next question. Obviously, I will start with Prithijit Da. How important, is corporate investment in football? Because during the uncertainty surrounding the ISL, we have seen a lot of clubs, struggling financially. They were forcing the players, they were requesting the players to take pay cut, they were reducing their budget. So how important is corporate investment in football? How difficult to convince, corporate investors? And also, what are the things do you think that Indian football need to prioritize to bring in more corporate investment?
I feel the only way to grow football is corporate investment. Nobody's making money in football. But to bring corporate investment, to keep corporate investment, to us the most important is the governance. What Interkashi faced for a very long period and the large money we've had to spend made us discuss multiple times internally whether it is worth keeping the club or shutting down the club. Even till recently, in December, we've had very serious discussions internally to shut down the club because we feel that the governance was a big issue. If we hadn't been bold enough, and if the club chairman wasn't that aggressive that we must fight for our rights and we must go to CAS, and we had to go to CAS for not one but for 2 cases, today we wouldn't be playing in ISL. Another team who wasn't the real winner would be playing in ISL. We won on the pitch. We were made names and people told us that you won in CAS code. But what people don't talk about is we actually won on the pitch. CAS reaffirmed what we did. CAS said that you were right and what happened to you was wrong. So I feel this whole thing could have been avoided. We as a club spent about 4.5 crores legal cost, which in today's day in football is a lot of money, which could have been used in grassroots and academies in so many better ways. The federation has also spent crores of money. I just feel that if we can get the governance correct, things will be better and people will start investing. It's not that people don't like football. Everyone wants to invest in football. They are just very concerned about their protection. Because any corporate who wants to come in, they are going to come in for the love of the game. They are not going to come in for the money. And for them to come in for the love of the game, they have to be 1000% sure that everything will happen in a planned way, in a sustainable way, and in a transparent way. If that can be shown consistently, not 3 months, 6 months, but like for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, I am sure like a lot of corporates will come in and a lot of money will come in football. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Same question for Mr. Chaudhary as well, because I think Jamshedpur is the only club in Indian Super League with their own facilities and with a big corporate backing like Tata Steel. How important is corporate investment, and what are the things do you think club need to prioritize or governing council need to prioritize to bring in more corporate investment?
So I'll just add on to what Pratyajit had mentioned. Yes, first of all, we are really lucky and blessed to have our own facilities, and Tata Steel has built these facilities long back, and many of the clubs don't have that kind of facilities. Every other club has to rent the government stadiums. That leads to availability issues and many other issues in terms of controlling how the pitch is maintained and many other things. So that way we are lucky and blessed. Corporate investments, yes, of course. I think it's a collective effort. If I sit back and we think that it would be the government that would do, or Sports Authority of India would do it, or some state government would come forth and they should do it, it may happen, but it will happen in its own pace. So we should think as to what I can do for the sport and otherwise. And that's how I think most of the corporates, thankfully, all Pratikjit, ourselves and Reliance and many more, JSW, and there's so many more who are doing it. I think it just shows patriotism in our own way, where we are supporting sports. And Tata's, as you know, we have a legacy of promoting and engaging in sports for over 100 years, and this is something that we will continue.
Absolutely. Deveshita.
If I may ask both Anirbandha and Satya sir, obviously Bengal Super League showed the way. Means they staged the inaugural season last season, and it was a beautiful run league. Is it the way forward when it comes to having such kind of state leagues? Means obviously you have your own league, Kolkata Football League, but it is the Bengal Super League that has created more eyeballs. Means, so is it the way forward when it comes to popularizing and taking footballs to different corners of the state?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that BSL is the missing link between the rest of Bengal and Calcutta. There are tiers of tournament, and if I have to place BSL, it is below Calcutta Football League Premier Division. But then again, it is a tournament that will give opportunity to the district players. So it will be easier for the clubs to scout players from the districts of Bengal. And once they get the limelight, it would be easier for them to move to Calcutta Football League. And from Calcutta Football League, they can go on with their journey for I-League and ISL and those. Yes, BSL is very, very important because, you know, it is an important cog in the system, and if it's not there, then the entire machinery shuts down. So we have failed the requirement, because even if you look at Calcutta Football League, you will see most of the players playing in Calcutta Football League are from the neighboring districts. So we needed to extend our reach to the districts far off, and with BSL we have been able to achieve that. We are very hopeful by next season there will be more players coming up, and we'll be reaching out to a larger number of spectators, larger number of players, larger number of sponsors, and bigger investment, which will overall help Bengal football to grow.
Yeah, just to add to that, what these leagues are doing is, like, you got a Bengal league, in Kerala you got a Super League, Gujarat has started one, Northeast is planning one. What happens is, normally like in England and every place, even a young player plays about 40 games a year. In India, most of the state leagues, they play 10, 15, and then it's over for them. Maybe if they play for the state, they get 2-3 games. Now with such leagues, you know, they play more number of games. Even in our youth league, this is what we are trying to do, is trying to give them at least about 30, 35 games. I don't know how many in this room know that last year we did 90 Asmita leagues, where each league, it's for girls, under 13, under 15, under 17. Each league had 8 teams. They played each other twice. So at 13, we had girls kicking football for the first time in an organized manner, and we had about 30 in each category. So they play there. Then we have the under 14, which is our state sub-junior. We have our under 16. So throughout, we are just ensuring from those 5 games and no games, they're at least getting about 15, 20 games now. Going forward, maybe in a few years, we'll reach that 30, 40 average. Same with, you know, when someone like West Bengal does another event, you have players getting another chance to play another 7, 8 leagues. So that's the only way. You give them more games. Like, for example, a Manchester City player plays almost 40, I mean, they play 38 games in their own league, then they play in the cup, then they play in the Champions League. That's almost a game a week. We hardly, if you take around the country, our average is not even 10 or 15. So we got a long way to go to try and reach that 30, 35, and leagues like this. That's why I said, I also touched on governance. Once this Sports Governance Act is implemented, and most of the states and the districts get their act together, you'll see more leagues being organized all over the country. And hopefully that's when the players will get opportunities to play more games.
In fact, I missed out what Satyaji has rightly mentioned, that with BSL we have been able to expand the football calendar of Bengal. So it is additional 2 months of employability for the players. It is additional 2 months of game time for the players, which aids them to develop themselves, which to a certain extent helps them to get a financial security for another 2 months. And the idea behind everything is ultimately we aim for a 12-month calendar for Indian football, which is right now somewhere around 6-7 months. So rather Bengal football. So if we can extend a few more months, then we can create round the year employability for the players and round the year game time for the players as well.
Okay, last few minutes and our final round of question. I will start with Satyanarayan sir only. Sir, let's talk about national team a bit. We are already out of the AFC Asian Cup, and keeping on mind in 2036, most likely we are going to take part in the Olympic. As a host nation, Indian football team might also take part. But as you see that our neighboring countries all are relying on OCI or PIO players. So what's your plan regarding bringing more OCI or PIO players? Do you think that's the only option right now for the national team?
No, I don't think that's the only option, but what gives us hope is right now we've got 2 AFF FIFA academies, one in Bhubaneswar, one in Hyderabad. Our under-17 team has qualified for the 4th time. Again, they're just 2-3 wins away from going into the World Cup on merit. Our under-23 team is doing very well. So hopefully in the next 3 or 4 years, these boys will all come into the national level. But speaking about OCIs, it's the central act. And we can't tell the government what to do whenever the government thinks it's right. The only problem is in a FIFA event, the day you play for your country, on that day you must have your Indian passport. So right now we don't have dual passports. So whenever the government thinks it's fit, they've already brought into the act that they are calling all our OCIs who have Indian passports. So already we had Ryan, who has converted from a Spanish passport to an Indian passport. A lot of others are showing interest. That is another reason why we are not doing well in the region, because in Afghanistan, almost all the players play in Europe. They've never been in Afghanistan, but they're playing for the country. Same with Syria. Same with even Sri Lanka. They've started getting their expats, who are outside the not OCIs, they're overseas players. And in India, we've got quite a lot of Indians who are playing in 2nd, 3rd divisions in Europe. And I'm sure if they come and can play for the country, straight away you're there in the top 10 of Asia. So hopefully if the government takes that decision, that's not in our hands. But the president has made a very strong plea for that. And I just have to tell Mukul that the current president of AFF, Mr. Kalyan Chobe, is also a product of the Tata Academy. He started from there and then he went on to play for the country. So on that note, yes, there is a lot of hope for us. Don't, just stay with us. We will definitely deliver. And the administration will also get better. We've got a lot to do, but we are there and we are working very hard.
I have a question for Pritijita. Pritijita, obviously, talking about Interkashi, you had a vision. Means obviously, and one of your goal was to play in the ISL, which you are now. But you have already started an academy. It's the homegrown players which will mean a success for Interkashi. So I'm told that you also have an academy now where you house 100 residential kids, boys. So what exactly are the plans for Interkashi in the long run?
Thank you. We have an academy. The whole idea is we are starting a football club from scratch. So we don't have fans. We need to build fan base. We have to build the football culture. We have to do everything. And the easiest way and the smartest way and the most sustainable way is to do it by academy, grassroots, have inter-school football tournament, have local matches, get kids to play and get them hooked to the game. So we right now have 100 kids, boys residential academy. We have 60 girls non-residential academy. The idea is to grow the football across UP for us. Uttar Pradesh is our universe, so we want to set up another 4-5 academies in the state with a view similar to what was talking about if India does win the 2036 Olympics, it essentially, football in Olympics is essentially under 23 game. You only have a few senior players, but it's mostly under 23. So I feel if you start on grassroots today, there is a really good chance if you can build up an ecosystem in 10 years from now, you might have 2, 3, 4 kids from Uttar Pradesh wearing the national team, playing in India, representing the country and playing the Olympics. So I think that is our vision, that is what we want to do. We have a plan where 2030 we want to have 30% of our senior team with UP kids. 2036 we want to have 100% of our team with local boys, because that's the only way we feel we can build a culture, we can get fans, we can get people to the stadium, and which will then give us the financial sustainability, because UP also as a state has, I don't know, billions of dollars as a GDP. So we're just looking internally to get sponsors, to get activations, to do everything within the ecosystem. And I feel if everyone does that, football can really grow in India.
Absolutely, interesting point made by Prithijit Dash. And one of the best thing about Interkashi, they're also planning to build, a modern facility stadium in the state of UP. So we are really looking forward to it. My next question, obviously for Mukul sir and then Anirban Da as well. Same question, where do you see Indian football when we meet, after 5 years?
I only see it growing and getting better, because I think where we are could be the lowest point possibly, because I think 141st rank is not the rank that we would have ever imagined, but at the same time it has its own reason. Having said that, I think it's only going to get better. Looking at the women's football particularly, I think there's tremendous change that one has seen, and thanks to everybody, all the stakeholders who have contributed to that, I think we'll only get better.
Anirban Da?
Well, as Mukulji rightly mentioned, that we have seen the lowest for Indian football, and when things get tough, the tough gets going, right? So it is, I'm very hopeful that it is only going to be better from now on, and we'll see changes and we'll see improvements in Indian football, and it is a sport for the mass, supported by the mass. You have been mentioning that there has been a lot of hue and cry because football was in such turbulence. But that also goes on to show that how much people care about the game. And that is what matters, And Prithijit, one for you. I believe that Interkashi is a club from Uttar Pradesh which has been nurtured by Bengal football. So do your academies, do your team, but there should be at least a 30% quota for Bengal in your team and your academies.
Great comment made by Anirban Da. My last question I will end with Mr. Satyanarayan. This year we have Asian Games, and government already made it mandatory that they will take athletes who have better chance of winning medal. But what about our men's under 23 team? Do you see them taking part in the Asian Games like last edition?
We've already made a request. You know what the government rule is. You have to be in the top 8 of your sport if you have to go. The second problem which we face is a football team has to go with about 30 people. But any other sport, 1, 2 can go. So it is, the odds are against us, but the government knows how popular the game is, and our under 23, we just lost by a whisker, and we didn't have our full strength. Some of the players were not there in the team. So hopefully, if we get a chance, they will do well. And the question which you asked them, I'd like to answer on behalf of AIFF. I think 5 years from now, surely we would have had at least one of the girls' team having qualified for the World Cup on merit. That is so almost, it should get done. And for us in the men's team, not more about the ranking, but at least if we get 5 or 10 players from India playing in leagues outside the country, I think that will be a huge success for us. And then let's see, from there we can take it on. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, very interesting panel, a lot of insight from all of our speakers. Thanks a lot to all of them for giving us their valuable time. And this session, showed us that a lot of positive going ahead. If administrator, clubs, the whole football fraternity can work together, I think obviously there's a way ahead for Indian football. Hopefully, next year when we will meet again, hopefully we can talk about the growth, the progress of Indian football. And also thanks to all of our audience for being part of this discussion.